Hey, Mike.
Hey, Hare Krishna, how are you?
I'm good. The world is falling apart, but I'm good.
Been doing that for a while.
What's that?
Been doing that for a while.
The world has completely changed since I last talked to you. I haven't even hardly had time to read. I've been like talking to devotees. One of my main mentors is a Ukrainian devotee named Adi Prusha.
Okay.
And he's a very big fan of my audiobooks, and he just put something in his story which is kind of disturbing. He said, "The last 2 days, the Ukrainian army has been very effective in holding back the Russian invaders, but if Ukraine is not successful and is not helped to be successful, no one will remain unaffected. The Russian Federation and its bloody bombings can still be stopped." Quote, "And once Ukraine's government caves, Putin will hold Europe hostage by stopping natural gas supplies and then that now flow through Ukraine's pipeline system. He will demand that his Nord Stream 2 pipeline be put into operation, the NATO withdraws from Eastern Europe, and that the West drops all sanctions against Russia and its elite." So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. It's heartbreaking, you know. It's like you see like these planes, and they showed this one Ukrainian woman or somebody was like with some kids, and they were filming with their iPhone out the jet coming across the horizon, and it launched a missile and it hit near the house, and the kid just started screaming. You know, this kind of thing is just like the way I felt after 9/11. You know, it's just really, really sad. But you know, the devotees need their prayers. There's a lot of devotees there. They have the biggest temple in Europe, in Ukraine. There's thousands of devotees in that country. Anyway, sometimes you have to actually kind of get a transcendental viewpoint. You know, you can't take sides in any kind of thing like this. One devotee was warning me about taking sides, you know, this side or that side. That's just politics, you know. It doesn't have anything to do with the transcendental truth. What we have to do is see things according to the way Krishna sees it, and see everybody as a spirit soul, and that they're being manipulated by the material energy, and not blame them for their you know, this or that. You know, you can't judge anybody. But anyway, let me share the screen here. We're at 9 already. So that shelter song you sent me,
Yeah.
I've never heard that song. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, who was in that band? There was a Kendra and
Kendra was in it. Actually, at this time, I believe it was a Kendra. A devotee by the name of Parmananda Porcel, who played guitar. Raghunath, Ray.
Raghunath is the yogi, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Ashley
And
is his kind of mentor. You know, I mean, he's not a guru, but she flies all over the place to see him talk. You know, she went down to Cabo a few months ago, or somewhere in Mexico, which is a nice place to go. But she just had the baby, and I think she took her baby and her husband and just went out in there and chill in Mexico, which is nice if you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. At that time, they were pretty much an all devotee band. You know, they would. Yeah, a lot of that. Like they used to play a lot of shows on the East Coast, and so a lot of the Philly Temple devotees would go. I think.
Did you ever see him live?
Oh yeah, a bunch. Yeah.
Really? Where did you live? I mean, you've always lived here.
I grew up outside of Philadelphia, but actually, maybe 4 years ago, they did a little like reunion show, and I drove out to Philadelphia and saw them play again.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's like the straight edge thing, right?
Yeah. They kind of came out of the straight edge movement, and then they were like straight edge kids, and then they got into Krishna consciousness and some other hardcore bands that were, putting.
They made a movie about that. It was actually filmed in the Bhakti Center in New York City. Did you know that?
About which?
About these like bands and 10,000 Saints.
Oh yeah. I have that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought that movie too because it was filmed there where my spiritual master bought that building back in the 90s because the devotees didn't want to go back and forth from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and so to just avoid that, they just bought the whole building, and it was just it was a warehouse at the time. It was filled with like old pipes and stuff, and they completely renovated it, and it turned into it was controlled by Interfaith League of Devotees for a while, but then ISKCON took it over after my spiritual master left his body, or actually probably before that. But anyway, there's a lot of devotees coming out of there. There's a young lady that gave class there this morning. Was amazing class. She's a Radhanath Swami disciple, just got initiated, and you can just see the compassion and the quality of the devotees that are coming out of that temple. There's a lot of them. Even Adi Purusha, who runs a bed and breakfast and tries to engage everybody, has been doing that for 20 years in Tompkins Square Park. And they have the best GBC representatives in New York City. They have Radhanath Swami, Vaisheshika Prabhu, who is like the topmost book distributor in the world, and Dave Marita Swami, who's kind of took me under his wing. I was driving for him when he was in New Vrindavan back in the 90s. But that's like, wow, what a place to live. That's why they say it's the best city in the world, because I got all the devotees there and Radha Muralidhar. I used to dress Radha Muralidhar at night. Those are such beautiful deities. Now they added Gaur. Lord Chaitanya is right next to him now. So, why don't you start off with text 9? Let's see how long it is. It's not that long.
Sure. Text 9. Punyo Gandha Prithvivyam Cha Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasu Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu Tapas Chasmi Tapas Vishu. Synonyms: Punya, original; Gandha, fragrance; Prithivyam, in the earth; Cha, also; Teha, heat; Cha, also; Asmi, I am; Vibhaso, in the fire; Jivanam, life; Sarva, in all; Bhuteshu, living entities; Tapa, penance; Cha, also; Asmi, I am; Tapas Vishu, in those who practice penance. Translation: I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat and fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics. Purport. Punya means that which is not decomposed. Punya is original. Everything in the material world has a certain flavor or fragrance, as the flavor and fragrance in a flower, or in the earth and water and fire and air, etc. The uncontaminated flavor, the original flavor, which permeates everything, is Krishna. Similarly, everything has a particular original taste, and this taste can be changed by the mixture of chemicals. So everything original has some smell, some fragrance, and some taste. Vibhavasu means fire. Without fire, we cannot run factories, we cannot cook, etc. And that fire is Krishna. The heat in the fire is Krishna. According to Vedic medicine, indigestion is due to a low temperature in the belly. So even for digestion, fire is needed. In Krishna consciousness, we become aware that earth, water, fire, air, and every active principle, all chemicals and all material elements, are due to Krishna. The duration of man's life is also due to Krishna. Therefore, by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. So Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere.
Yeah, Devananda Pandit, he played at the Kirtan Center, singer-songwriter. Sounds like Dylan. He plays harmonica. He wrote a song, based on this verse. It's kind of like a lot of the verses from. Is that Shelter Song? Is that kind of like a rap rock song too, or?
They were a hardcore band, so it was an offshoot of punk, but At that time in their career, they was a lot more melodic. I mean, still heavy, but like had more rhythm and melody to it.
Yeah. I think the Devananda Pandit's song goes, I am the heat of the fire, I am the heat of the fire, anyway, he used that particular verses in his song, that it could be a good rap song too. But I'm kind of more or less influenced by harder rock myself. I'm deaf in one ear because of it, because I was wearing my earbuds too long. As I was cleaning the house, I wore them for like 2 hours. And if you have very loud bass in your earbuds for a long time, big mistake. Yeah, don't do that. My one ear is probably 80% deaf. Like only 20% left of hearing. So that's not a good thing. Because hearing is the most important thing. Text 10. Bijam mam sarvabhutanam vidhi partha sanatanam buddhir buddhimantam asmi tejasvinamaham. Synonyms. Bijam, the seed. Mam, me. Sarvabhutanam, of all living entities. Vidhi, try to understand. Partha, son of Prita. Sanatanam, original, eternal. Buddhi, intelligent. Buddhimatam, of the intelligent. Asmi, I am. Teja, Parawas, Tejasvinam, of the powerful, Aham, I am. Translation: O son of Prita, know that I am the original seed of all existence, is the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. Purport: Bijam means seed. Krishna is the seed of everything. There are various living entities, mobile and inert. Birds, beasts, men, and many other living creatures are moving living entities. Trees and plants, however, are inert. They cannot move, but only stand. Every living entity is contained within the scope of 8,400,000 species of life, some of them moving, some of them inert. In all cases, however, the seed of their life is Krishna. As stated in Vedic literature, Brahman, or the Supreme Absolute Truth, is that from which everything is emanating. Krishna is Para-Brahman, the Supreme Spirit. Brahman is impersonal and Para-Brahman is personal. Impersonal Brahman is situated in the personal aspect, that is stated in the Bhagavad-gītā. Therefore, originally Krishna is the source of everything. He's the root. As the root of a tree maintains the whole tree, Krishna, being the original root of all things, maintains everything in this material manifestation. This is also confirmed in the Vedic literature, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. Oh, okay, so there's a little bit more. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahonam vuyo vedadati kamam. He is the prime eternal among all eternals. He's the supreme living entity of all living entities, and he alone is maintaining all life. One cannot do anything without intelligence, and Krishna also says that he is the root of all intelligence. Unless a person is intelligent, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So it's like there are some inert living entities, trees. They say that, if every living entity accumulates their activities, then they get a body in their next life according to that behavior. So if you're very much interested in sex, you get the body of a tree. Just like Yamal Arjuna trees that Narada cursed those two demigods that were totally drunk and cavorting with women in Kuvera's sons, actually, the sons of Kuvera in the spiritual world. And Narada passed by and all the girls were covered up immediately, but they were just like shameless. And so they didn't do anything. And so Narada cursed them, which was also a blessing because they saw Krishna. Mm-hmm. And Krishna, he's a little baby. He was a naughty boy, and mother tied him up, and he tied him up to the pestle, and he tore those huge trees down. And Krishna was kind of a jubilant delinquent, I mean, him and Balaram, when they went into Mathura, I mean, he was like strutting around. He would have made a good rapper, actually. This whole chapter is like a big rap song. But Krishna has a right to all these attributes because it is him. but he didn't take anything from anybody. He was like he walked around like he owned the place. He came upon that guy that had the cloth. He said, he just asked him for some cloth, and he said, no, this belongs to the king, and Krishna got pissed and chopped his head off with his hand. So, I mean, that's pretty radical. Mm-hmm. But he can get away with it because he's God. Everything he does is perfect. Go ahead and read text 11.
Text 11. Alam balavatam chaham amaraga viva urjitam ama virudobhuteshu amosmi varatar shaba. Translation. For synonyms. Balam, strength, balavatam, of the strong, cha, and aham, I am, kama, passion, raga, and attachment, vivarjitam, devoid of, dharma, aviruda, not against religious principles, uteshu, in all beings, kama, sex life, asmi, I am, bharata Vrishaba, or Lord of the Bharatas. Translation. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna. Purport. The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles, dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious.
Yeah. The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak. That's the one of the principles of governing person, whether you're a king or president or dictator. You should protect the weak. It's not for personal aggression. And this guy Putin, he's just like, he's really envious. It's hard to describe what he's doing. Everybody's asking, why is he doing this? But the real reason he's doing it is because he can't stand the fact that he's a failed dictator, and there's somebody who's right next to him that has a pretty nice democracy. And so, he's thinking maybe other countries like, Uzbekistan or whatever in the Western and Eastern Europe will have the same idea as Ukraine and say, well, maybe we should try that too. And he hates that because he's a total envious, demoniac megalomaniac. And so, he's a failed leader, and he wants everybody else to fail around him, because that way he won't appear so bad, But anyway, there's a special place in hell for people like that. So, text 12. Chaiva sattvika bhava rajasas tamasaschaye mata et vetitan vidi natvam teshu te mai. Synonyms: yea, all which, cha, and, eva, certainly, sattvika, in goodness, bhava, states of being, rajasa, in the mode of passion, tamasa, in the mode of ignorance, cha, also, yea, all which, mata, from me, eva, certainly, iti, thus, tan, those, vidi, try to know, na, not to, but, aham, I, teshu, in them, te, they, mai, in me. Translation. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested from my energy. I am, in one sense, everything, but I'm independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. They changed that a little bit. That's not the original version. Pretty close enough, though. Purport. All material activities in the world are being conducted under the three modes of material nature. Although these material modes are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is not subject to them. For instance, under the state laws, one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Similarly, all the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, but Krishna is not subject to material nature. Therefore, he is nirguna, which means that these gunas, or modes, although issuing from him, do not affect him. That is one of the special characteristics of Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly, a devotee is not affected by the modes of material nature. He's not affected by karma. A pure devotee is not affected at all by karma. So, you rise above the modes, and you're not affected by good or bad karma. All karma is bad because you have to take birth and repay somebody. If you do somebody a favor, if somebody does a favor for you or something like that, you have to come back and pay them back. But when you surrender to Krishna, you don't have to pay back anybody because Krishna is the source of everything, and that all of your activities have no reaction. So that's the position of Krishna and the devotees. You rise above all these modes. Go ahead and read 13.
Text 13. Shakir Guna Mayer Bhavir Hi Sarvam Idam Jagat Mohitam Nabhi Janati Madebya Param Avyayam. Synonyms. Chudhi Guna Mayi, consisting of the guna, of value, of the state of being.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. It just got really quiet.
Okay. So the synonyms are Chudhi 3, Guna Mayi, consisting of the gunas, Bhavi, by the states of being, Iphi, all these, Sarvam, whole, Idam, this, Jagat, universe, Mohitam, deluded, Na Abhijaniti, does not know, Mam, me, Ebya, above these, Param, the supreme, Avyayam, inexhaustible. Translation: deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Purport: the whole world is enchanted by the three modes of material nature. Those who are bewildered by these three modes cannot understand that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Every living entity under the influence of material nature has a particular type of body and a particular type of psychological and biological activities accordingly. There are four classes of men functioning in the three material modes of nature. Those who are purely in the mode of goodness are called Brahmanas. Those who are purely in the mode of passion are called Kshatriyas. Those who are in the modes of both passion and ignorance are called Vaishyas. Those who are completely in ignorance are called Shudras. And those who are less than that are animals or animal-like. However, these designations are not permanent. There may be either a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or whatever. In any case, this life is temporary. But although life is temporary and we do not know what we are going to be in the next life, by the spell of this illusory energy, we consider ourselves in terms of this bodily conception of life. And we thus think that we are American, Indian, Russian, or Brahmana, Hindu, Muslim, etc. And if we become entangled within the modes of material nature, then we forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is behind all these modes. So Lord Krishna says that living entities deluded by these three modes of nature do not understand that behind the material background is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Let's see how long this is. Okay, you can read the last paragraph too.
There are many different kinds of living entities, human beings, demigods, animals, etc. And each and every one of them is under the influence of material nature, and all of them have forgotten the transcendent personality of Godhead. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, and even those who are in the modes of goodness, cannot go beyond the impersonal Brahman conception of the absolute truth. They are bewildered before the Supreme Lord in his personal feature, which possesses all beauty, opulence, knowledge, strength, fame, and renunciation. When even those who are in goodness cannot understand, what hope is there for those in passion and ignorance? Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all these three modes of material nature, and those who are truly established in Krishna consciousness are actually liberated.
Yeah, Krishna covers every living entity with his curtain of Maya. The modes of nature, you can't penetrate beyond the modes of nature, even if you're in the mode of goodness. But the mode of goodness is a good starting block. If you get the mercy of Krishna, if you associate with devotees, then that will break through and you'll be able to see the nature of the absolute personality of Godhead. Otherwise, you'll never understand. It doesn't matter how long you speculate. It doesn't not matter. You can go at the speed of the mind for 50 million years, and never reach the spiritual world or beyond the modes of material nature, because Krishna is. There is a verse, I can't remember what it is, but it says, the Supreme Personality of God is not accessible, is not understood by these material senses, and as long as we haven't purified our senses and connected them to Krishna, then by Krishna's grace we can understand, but we'll never understand by ourselves, by our empiric study, by our speculation, by our charity, by our penance, by anything. It doesn't matter. We'll never understand unless we get the mercy of Krishna somehow or other. Krishna reveals himself to one he chooses to reveal himself to. So that way, it's kind of like a pretty private club, where you got the velvet rope. Velvet rope's like Maya. You can't go in. There's bouncers at the door, and you'll never even. You can show them all your credentials, your knowledge, your education, all these different things, qualifications. Krishna doesn't care about that. He only cares about love and devotion, surrender, bhakti. That way you get in. Otherwise, you're not allowed in. It's kind of cool, really, when you think about it. It's like an exclusive club, and nobody else can get in. It's a straight edge club, too, because, nobody drinks or smokes or anything like that. I don't know if they have hard rock in the spiritual world, but maybe, I don't know. Text 14. Daivihesha gunamayi, this is an important verse. Mama maya dharatya mamevaye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Daivi, transcendental, he, certainly, Esha, this, gunamayi, consisting of the three modes of material nature, mama, my, Maya, energy, dharatya, very difficult to overcome. Mam, unto me, eva, certainly, yea, those who prapadyate, surrender, mayametam, this illusory energy, taranti, overcome, te, they. Translation. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. Oh my God, this is a long one. We'll take turns reading. You read the first paragraph.
Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with the material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nityabhara, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Ayam tu prakritam vidyan, ayinam tu maheshvaram. Although Maya, illusion, is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshvara, supreme controller. Śikṣāṣtaka, Upanishad 410.
Didn't you ask that question before? Like how is a conditioned soul eternally conditioned? Did you ask that?
We were talking about that last week. It was more like, how does one who's in the spiritual kingdom decide?
Yeah. Actually, I've heard it said that the spirit soul, it can't fall down from the spiritual world. But, Krishna can choose, like the two gatekeepers, Jai and Vijay, they offended the Kumars, and the Kumars cursed them to come out in the material world, and they had 3 births in the material world: Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, and I think there was one other one, I can't remember. But anyway, so Krishna likes to fight. So sometimes he chooses his devotee. Nobody can fight with Krishna. He has to fight with somebody that's like of his same kind of quality. So if he wants to fight, he'll choose a devotee to come down to the material world, and then he can display his pastimes, which everyone is attracted to. But that's the only reason he displays his pastimes like that is because he wants to attract the living entities. He displays all kinds of pastimes, like the fighting. Everybody's like if you look at a movie, that if there's a fight, everybody likes fighting and romance and all these things. And Krishna displays all these things just to attract the living beings. Otherwise, he has no business here, except to display himself to his devotees. That's the real reason he comes. I mean, he can kill anybody he wants to, without even him coming. But sometimes he does like to fight, and so he'll do that. And it's still perfect. He doesn't take sides, That's what somebody was telling me today about this thing, and we can't take sides in this Ukrainian war, like this against us against them, or friends against enemies, because Krishna tells Arjuna and tells Uddhava in the 28th chapter of the Jnana Yoga, the 11th canto. He says, you should look at all the living entities as just being controlled by the material energy, and the material energy is controlled by Krishna. You can't judge them. Well, this person is great. This person is like poor or rich, or judge people according to their material propensity. And because if we do that in any way, then our consciousness enters into duality. This is good, this is bad, this is my friend, this is my enemy. We get into partisan politics, and it's just a completely diluting energy. And Krishna warns our Uddhava not to have that mentality. And Bhaktisiddhanta, he commented on that verse. He said, there's a lot of people who, it's envious people, or, like third-class devotees, or even envious, or non-devotees, or envious third-class devotees. There's third-class Kanishthadikars. They try to separate these groups from that group. I even heard from one of my old, senior devotee in New Vrindavan, Sankirtan Prabhu. He's like the theater producer. He's been doing theater there since the early 70s. He's Old Bridge Basi, very advanced devotee. And he was saying, he was hearing some wild things. And I said, well, what things have you been hearing from devotees about this whole conflict? He said, yeah, well, they're saying that the Ukrainian government is like Nazis, fascists. And that's just a Russian talking point, which is infiltrated into the Republican Party, and it's being propagated by one of the biggest mouthpieces on Fox News, Tucker Carlson. So all this poisonous nonsense is infecting the devotees, So sometimes we have to talk about that and call it out for what it is, because it's complete nonsense. It's not you're not being a very good representative of ISKCON if you're talking about a democratic government. I told Sankirtan, you should tell him that. He said, you should go to Russia and fight for Russia if you think like that. I'll even chip in, for your ticket, because you're better there than than the Holy Dham, spreading this nonsense. So anyway, it's regrettable. I mean, a lot of devotees have been cooped up for so long. They start talking about political things. They get into politics. They get into conspiracy theories, and sometimes I think devotional people, no matter what faith they're in, they're affected by these wild end times and, you know, political conspiracy theories like that. I remember during 9/11, or no, I mean, what was that? The Y2K, remember Y2K?
Yeah.
But how old were you then? That was like 22 years ago. You were in your 20s then, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I remember Sri Galim, he was the head of the Kirtan Center at that time. And he was really freaked out. He thought, well, this is going to be horrible. You know, there'll be satellites falling from the sky. Everything's going to collapse. And he was like hoarding all this grains and water in his garage. You know, one devotee I know from Florida, he had his a girlfriend or wife, I can't remember what it was. He closed up his preaching center, threw his wife in the van, and started going around, you know, driving around the country before Y2K. And I knew nothing was going to happen, you know. It's just sometimes we believe in that kind of stuff. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like sometimes devotees get a little bit, you know, unless you're really reading the scripture every day, and even sometimes some senior devotees are kind of affected by these ideas. But of course nothing happened in Y2K. Just another day, you know. But you can't get pulled into these like fantastic things that, you know, that are happening. But I'm just thanking God that I kind of have a sane, common sense attitude towards these things, and I can see when you know, you're kind of like deviating from what Prabhupada would look at the world and see it in a true light. You know, you can't like start listening to all this garbage, especially on the internet. If you're like consumed on the internet day and night, looking all this stuff up. But let's read the rest of this verse here, because we're getting late. I'll read this paragraph, you read the last paragraph, and then we'll call it a day. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly held, or tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man is bound by the hands and feet and cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna, or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material energy. Devotional service, or Krishna consciousness, can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the conditioned soul and out of his parental affection for the living entity, who is originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, should surrender the lotus feet of the Lord as the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. Go ahead.
Words Mam Miva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna, passion, and Tamoguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Therefore, he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8, confirms this in the phrase Tam Eva Vidvita, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnur Eva Na Samshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of this, purport of this particular verse, you know, you can't possibly overcome the modes of material nature by yourself. That's like in the 12-step programs. You're familiar with like Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. You have to have a higher power, And of course, it's a Christian concept. They don't have a very scientific understanding of these things, but we have the science of how Krishna is controlling all these different modes of material nature, and how one can actually surrender to this, to a higher power. They don't know what this higher power is. They think it's some kind of impersonal force, or they say Jesus or whatever. If they believe in that, then that's good. But if they chant the name, then they can actually get out or read the Bible or whatever they want to do. But the thing is, it's a very successful program, but you can't do it yourself. The material nature is too difficult to overcome by yourself, and you can't get over your attachment to your sense gratification or your bad habits simply by your will. I mean, of course, you have to have the will to get out. Nobody can get help by Krishna if they don't want help. And similarly, no one can overcome their addictions unless they want to be helped from a superior power. But they actually have a bhakti, a group that's based on the Bhagavad-gītā that has a program, kind of like a 12-step program for devotees that have struggled with addictions. And I was thinking about doing that locally here at Pittsburgh, the Veterans Place of Washington Boulevard. We used to share prasadam there before everything shut down. But they have a very nice presentation room with multimedia, big screen and everything. I could do that, and maybe I could even introduce the mantra. But right now it's not for a very good time, because actually I called them about this, and they were actually shut down because they had some inmates there that were had COVID, and they were completely having a skeleton crew, But that's a really good thing, because I think it's a good idea to present Krishna consciousness to those kind of people, because the Bhagavad-gītā was spoken on a battlefield to a soldier who was doubtful about his duty, and he had to rise above their, all these veterans they have a lot of problems. They have 99 problems, drug addiction, drug and alcohol problems, PTSD, and the only way you can rise above that is through the help of Krishna. Otherwise, you can't do it, so that's a good starting point, because all of them are affected by that, and they try to get them help, but not all of it's very scientific. And if you have a devotee there that can present that kind of thing, then it could be helpful for someone, to actually, get out of whatever rut that they're in. I'm going to do that, I think, in the spring, maybe if everything starts clearing up a little bit. Hopefully it will. Probably always have this virus around, but now we have a war. Great. Yeah, probably I'll be shipped off to the Eastern Europe or something. But, that's a material world. Anyway, thank you very much again. Melissa couldn't come tonight because she works till 6 o'clock, and she works all day at a call center, and that's a pretty stressful job, and so she couldn't join in. But whenever I think she's off or gets off early, she'll probably join us